Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you all for coming to Great Sacred Music this afternoon. Today's theme is the Metaphysical Poets, a loose grouping of 17th century English poets who wrote in a style emphasizing colloquial language and poetic wit and conceits, intertwining scientific, religious, and philosophical ideas. It wasn't a defined movement, but rather was later categorized by Samuel Johnson, of dictionary fame, as a race of writers that may be termed the metaphysical poets. By this, Johnson probably doesn't mean metaphysical in the philosophical sense, but rather in reference to John Dryden, who said of John Donne, he affects the metaphysics, not only in his satires, but in his amorous verses, when nature only should reign, and perplexes the mind of the fair sex with nice speculations of philosophy, when he should engage their hearts and entertain them with the softnesses of love. So, contemporary critics weren't too keen, particularly Johnson. He wrote pretty strident criticisms of the style, and throughout the program today, I will return to what he said about the poets, using his harsh criticism to highlight some aspects of the movement which are now seen as some of its best features. That first piece you heard was John Dowland's setting of Henry Law's poem, Sweet Stay a While. One line in the poem goes, "The day breaks not, it is my heart." And this stark combination of grand natural imagery with intimate personal emotion is an important feature of the style and is intended to shake the reader out of complacency. Samuel Johnson, it may not be surprising to hear, was not such a fan of this contrasting, writing, "The most heterogeneous ideas are yoked by violence together." We now come to our first hymn, King of Glory, King of Peace. This is a text by George Herbert, whose texts have been set to music many times, including Vaughan Williams' famous 5 mystical songs. Herbert had a very plain, direct style in his hymn writing, choosing to use simple, everyday language and often unconventional structures to emphasize his ideas. So please remain seated, but do join in the singing as St. Martin's voices lead us and stand for the first hymn. Our next piece is Imogen Holst's setting of John Donne's A Hymn to Christ. She sets the first 2 verses of the poem, which use metaphors of a ship, an island, and a tree to represent a body approaching death. He wrote this poem as he was about to go on a diplomatic mission with very uncertain risks, so it's a very personal view of preparing for death. Our old friend and critic Samuel Johnson was not keen on this kind of drawn-out metaphor, writing, "Nature and art are ransacked for illustrations, comparisons, and illusions. Their learning instructs, and their subtlety surprises, but the reader commonly thinks his improvement dearly bought, and though sometimes he admires, is seldom pleased." After this, we will sing Parry's setting of Henry Vaughan's poem, "My Soul, There is a Country." This is one of many 20th century settings of the metaphysical poets, which began during a revival of the styles, led by poets including T.S. Eliot, who applied their methods and techniques in his own work. During this revival, many people tried to formalize the movement, but there's still no real consensus about who counts as a metaphysical poet. Prominent figures are John Donne, George Herbert, Henry Vaughan, Abraham Crowley, and others. And works by several of these poets were selected by Parry to be set in his Songs of Farewell, from which the second piece is taken.
That ship
Next, we sing Samuel Webb Jr.'s Come and Let Us Live. This is a translation by Richard Crashaw of a Latin poem by Catullus, who's known for his passionate, often quite racy poetry. And Webb sets this poem in a glee, a type of popular English part song similar to a madrigal, but often a bit more raucous and often to be sung at dining or drinking societies. Now, we've only had a cup of coffee today, but we'll do our best to capture the spirit. This poem is about two young lovers sharing kisses under the scornful eye of the older generations, and Crashaw focuses on the large number of kisses in his translation. So it's your job to count how many hundreds and thousands of kisses are mentioned. Thank you so much for joining us for Choral Classics this afternoon. Next up, we have another translation by Richard Crashaw for our second hymn together. This time, translated from St. Thomas Aquinas. This translation, because it's written as a hymn, is very regular and careful meter, but this was not always the case for the metaphysical poets, who often broke away from traditional forms and meters. Johnson, unsurprisingly, did not approve of this writing. The metaphysical poets were men of learning, and to show their learning was their whole endeavor. But unluckily resolving to show it in rhyme, instead of writing poetry, they wrote only verses, and very often such verses as stood the trial of the finger better than of the ear, for the modulation was so imperfect that they were found only to be verses by counting the syllables. So please join us in singing this thankfully regular meter for our next hymn, With All the Powers My Poor Heart Hath. Please do join us again for Great Sacred Music if you've enjoyed today. We'll be back again next week, same time, same place. There are more details on your sheet. You can also join us on Sundays for Choral Classics at 1 p.m, or watch it online from 24 hours afterwards on our streaming platform, stmartins.digital. On your way out, there's an opportunity for you to donate to the development of the music program at St Martin's if you feel able to. If you haven't got cash, you can find other ways to donate on the back of the sheet. Finally, in today's program is the contemporary American composer Sally Albrecht's Let All the World. In this version of the poem, Stan Pethel reworks the well-known George Herbert poem to a more condensed form, and Sally Albrecht's music sets the new text in a way which has echoes of the famous Vaughan Williams setting, but a bit more jazzed up.